Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 787, Gary and Richard are here, and we've got lots to talk about. We've got a new build Windows 10 last week, not a huge amount in it, but we're talking about that. Windows 10X leaks, we had to play with it, and we'll let you know what we think of it. We've got a little bit of retro computing. Gary's got tips for mounting TV on the wall. We've got all sorts of stuff, so let's get straight to Gary and Richard. Richard, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Okay, good. And Gary should be joining us soon, but we thought we'd dive straight in as we're both here. So both still getting through what you said, lockdown 3. It feels even more of that, but yeah, I guess it is.
Yes.
3.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some of our US colleagues and friends may feel that every hour or days feels like a year, but. Yeah. In the US, it's the same in England too. I think every minute just seems to drag on right now.
Yeah, definitely. But there is good news. Like I said last week, my son's had a vaccine, and my dad, who's in his 80s, has had the vaccine. So they're going out partying and planning now, I think.
No, they're not. They're obviously being very sensible and staying indoors.
Yeah. So, but that it's good. It's good. So Gary's thing again about the technology of these vaccines. It's getting there. So it's when technology really makes a difference.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
But that's not what we want to talk about.
No, we're not at all. We're not talking about entirely pointless stuff.
Entirely pointless stuff, yeah. So, we've got lots of things to talk about tonight. We did get new build last week, Windows 10, for the dev channel. And an update for it as well that came out, but that was a little patch for it.
Well, it was, except it did do some odd things, didn't it? I mean, obviously this is a build 21292 which came out, I think, last week, because they do have a habit of releasing builds just after we've recorded the show. And so this I mean, it was a relatively minor release in that it seemed to mainly fix issues around that sort of the new news and interest taskbar option, which is handy, I suppose, if you're using it. Again, as I say, it seems to be the latest in a long line of attempts by Microsoft to kind of foist some kind of widget which shows news and weather stuff on users, but it was perhaps an indication where they might be going in terms of the GUI. But as well as that, as you say, a few days after it was released, they did their usual thing of shunting out an update, ostensibly to test their servicing pipeline, which they're doing that a lot, aren't they? It seems like almost every other release gets an update to test their servicing pipeline. Now, they explicitly said this update does not include anything new, except it did do something, didn't it? It did do something, and goodness me, I hadn't realized so many people actually used Windows on ARM, because the shouting started almost immediately. And there's an issue with, I think, the way it installs itself that effectively breaks the x64 emulation on Windows and ARM PCs in the dev channel. And the only way to fix it, I believe, is to back out the update, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think it's that patch that came down, KB 4601937, if you keep your score at home. And I think you have to uninstall it. But it was quite interesting, because they issued that update on the 21st to say, there's a cumulative patch available, and nothing to see here. I didn't do a post about it or anything. And then like you said, then we saw all the ARM users complaining. So although they say they were testing servicing pipeline, there obviously was some different code in there.
Well, exactly. I mean, I'm guessing whatever it did when it installed itself, it somehow turned off that x64 emulation. Of course, I could be a bit snarky now and say, yes, it upset the ARM user. But I'm not going to say that, because that would be unnecessary snark. But certainly, it was, what I found most interesting about that was just how many people were hit by it, because it shows, I guess, there's more insiders than perhaps we know about trying out stuff on Windows and on PCs. I guess there's a Surface Pro X must go somewhere.
Yeah, well, we know our friend of the show, Jeremy Sinclair, he's got one, so he's one of them.
Exactly, yeah. And I have to say, it's a fairly major thing to break, because it's one of those basic things that you would have expected that have automated testing for this, because it's a whole functional area. I mean, if it was, say, one little one weird app that stopped working, I'd understand it, but it's an entire swathe of functionality that they basically broke, which does worry me a little bit about what kind of testing they're doing before flinging this stuff out. I know dev channel is dev channel, it's preview code. There's no guarantee it's going to work, and of course you should never ever run your production system on the dev channel. Microsoft are very clear about this, but equally you kind of hope that it's had some form of testing before it leaves Microsoft and enters the PCs of dev channel users. So yeah, a little bit worrying that it's there. Quite amusing, but a little bit worrying. But again, as with all things dev channel, each release could break everything on your PC. So always be aware of that, and always keep backups.
Yeah, that's right. I did see a few people complaining, and I do think that I've got it on my Surface Go, and I take the risk that the next build might just mean I've got to do a complete reinstall. I know that, and that's why I'm not running it on my laptop, because I need that. So you take the risk with it. Exactly.
Yeah. I've got a SAC official laptop that I tend to use for these things, and also some virtual machines which do well. But I must admit, I have actually had to back out of using inside of previews on my machines that I perhaps use day to day, because I have noticed things have got a bit more unstable in recent months. For me personally, obviously your mileage may vary.
Yeah, that's right. And the actual build itself, there wasn't really anything new in there, but there was a lot of changes to the the fixes that they would call them, to that news and interest bar, and I wonder. There's a lot of work going into this news and interest. It's not even called a bar. Let's let Garry in. Good evening.
Good evening. Teams is doing its usual tricks.
Well, we just interrupted ourselves to make sure we got you on the call there. So, Garry, we were just talking about the bill from last week.
Yep.
We talked about the issue with the not working after you got the cumulative update. Well, I just question the news and interest bar that they previewed, and it had a lot of fixes included in for that last week. And I like the preview bar and everything, but I just wonder whether there's some other reason other than just that news and preview bar that they're doing all this work on this, and whether it is being used as a test for the WebView 2 control, rather than this being a specific feature that has been called for.
There seems to be an awful lot of effort going into it, so it strikes me as it's a technology test of some sort. Yeah, so I think you may well. I mean, this sort of thing you could do as a test for that.
Yeah, because as we mentioned last week, just because it's in these builds, it doesn't mean to say it'll ever get public release, because these are the features just for testing here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the fixes that they included, I mean, well, there's nothing really specific to say, but it was just things like getting the data and refreshing they're not called tiles, are they now? Are they panels? Is that the
panels? Yeah.
Yeah. I like I actually quite like it, and I know the I think by default now it has a smaller icon in the taskbar as well, so it doesn't take up quite as much space as well. So on something like the Surface Go, it's actually quite a lot of the taskbar that gets taken up by it. So if you've got a big widescreen monitor, it's not really a problem, but when you've got a small device like Surface Go, it does take quite a bit of it up. But I actually quite like it, but I just wonder, as much as I do like it, I love seeing anything new. Who's asked for this?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, it does sound more and more like it's a bit of a test bed to sort of test out those the technologies ahead of obviously a future major desktop update.
Yeah, maybe.
I think the other thing which the content leads to is advertising revenue potentially. So that's the other aspect where they've always tried to put some form of advertising into Windows. But remember the old Bing News stuff with all the ads sprinkled around it. I could see them trying to do that again. It's never been successful, but they keep trying.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you can turn it off.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You can. Yeah, and you can ignore it and turn it off. I'd like to think we'll see some more things in it, and maybe it is a bit more of a test. I've seen a couple of screenshots of a potential leaked Windows 10 start menu, where it has that kind of rounded corner effect with a floating start menu. So maybe we will see that from Windows 10 in the coming months. We might see some UI changes coming to Windows 10.
Well, hopefully so. And of course, there is also the impending or not Windows 10X.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So last week, a Hyper-V image, I guess it is, of Windows 10X leaked, which you can get the Windows 10X on Hyper-V image straight, just directly from Microsoft, so you don't have to get the leak. But this is the first one that was specifically designed for single screen, as opposed to the ones that are currently available are all dual screen ones. So I've seen, everybody posted videos and clicks and to try and get some clicks and pictures of it. I had a look at it. I decided not to do a video myself because it's leaked. It's not official, so there's no point in judging it because you've no idea what its origin, where its source. It could be a hacked version of the dual screen one. We just don't know its provenance, do you? So, but did you get a chance to play around with it, Richard?
Yes, I did, and I have to say I'd echo your comments there that you need to have a fairly major health warning slapped on this. It has been leaked. Maybe it's been deliberately leaked to float some ideas out there. It's a tricky one, really. So, again, I also have not gone too near, because also I think it's a little bit unfair to make too many judgments on what is still very much work in progress. It's preview stuff, even though I think some are saying this could well be near as damn at the final code, although if it is, then goodness me. But yeah, I did have a little a little walk around it, and I got a distinct sense of deja vu, actually.
So were you transported back to the Windows 8 era?
I was transported back. I thought, hey, crikey, there's a lot of full screen action happening here and split screen stuff. And I found myself thinking, oh, you know what? If this was on a tablet, I could just do that Windows 8 start menu right now. It would work really well. So, whereas, of course, you actually got this strange situation where, in actual fact, it's on a desktop because it's now designed for desktops, and you and of course, you pop up the very, very simplified sort of. Would you call it a start menu, or how would you describe how would you describe it, Ian?
Start experience.
Start experience, yeah. So, but I did think to myself, this is good, but
actually, I think technically it's actually called a launcher, just to be
launcher. Thank you. Yes, yeah. Let's really use those Android phrases, shall we? Call it a launcher. Yeah, so yeah, it's certainly interesting. I'm not 100% sure I'm convinced about it. I think be very interesting to see how it performs on some of the very low end hardware that's because it looks like it is aimed at being kind of a Chromebook competitor or rival. That's kind of my take at it. But again, I'm loath to make too many judgments because this is really early stuff. It just seems very unfair to cast too many aspersions, but I have to say I did find myself thinking of Windows 8 a few times.
Yeah, I had a play around with it, and it's not that far removed from what you, like I said earlier, the version you can get now, the dual screen version of it. It's just on a single screen, so you could almost get the dual screen version from the Microsoft Store and switch it to single screen mode, and you pretty much got the same experience.
Yeah.
But it has got some polish compared to that one, because that was a pretty raw state, those earlier ones. So it has got some polish and refinement to it. I did notice that there's I couldn't see an option to create a local account, which I know some people get really upset about, these being forced to use an online account. But I think for the nature of this system, which is for Chromebook type competitor, then I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah, it did feel very much like it was designed to be an online or LT connected device. It felt that it was more of a portal into Microsoft's online services.
Yeah, and things like the File Explorer is exactly the same.
Exactly,
one that's in the other in the dual screen version, and it's basically OneDrive with your access to your download folder.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. And of course, I mean, there are some things in terms of what you can run and what you can't run. As there's some strange background noise there.
That's weird, wasn't it?
That was strange. But yes, so you can run apps and things, but there's no Win32 app support out of the box, I can tell, unless you enable some form of dev mode. So that again is perhaps a hint as what's to come. But yet again, I don't know if that's what's going to be in the final version. I mean, Gary, do you have any feeling for how far away this is from the final cut? I mean, obviously Windows 10X is coming, but I'm not sure how close this truly is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where this has come from, to be honest, and I don't know if it's off of a developer branch or it's certainly more advanced in some ways than things I've seen, and it's behind other things I've seen. So I don't know. It's difficult to judge it exactly. I mean, as he rightly says, I mean the dual screen version is the version of is 10X. I mean, there won't be a specific single screen version because there's no point in that. The dual screen and the single screen version is one and the same basically. It will just adapt to whatever platform you put it on. So this does seem a little bit odd. Unless they decided not to do a dual screen run at all, which is possible.
Well, yeah, I mean that is entirely possible. Although I have to say, when I was using it again with the full size, the non-windowed approach, I did think to myself, this would make a lot of sense on like a tablet type device.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's difficult. I haven't seen anything which. I mean, all I've seen is the screenshots from the videos for it because I haven't actually tried it myself. I didn't want to take that risk. But from what I've seen, it looks different in some ways to things I've seen as being developed previews for it. Can't say what I have seen.
Obviously, no.
But there's definitely some differences which are noticeable.
Exactly. So I think the key point is this is not the finished product by any stretch of imagination. Yeah. There's more. There's still more to go. So again, I would take a lot of it with a pinch of salt. I don't know how I feel about it, if I'm honest. It's. I guess I'm trying to work out what it's really aimed at and what it's trying to do. Certainly, Windows 10X development does appear to. Well, it feels like it's very late. This should have come out perhaps last year sometime, really. So I was very surprised that there was just not a peep about it during the education event that's happening, unless things are planned in the coming days. But obviously, there's the BetFest education event that's happening this week, and there's been nothing about it that I can see. Just a bunch of very, very low spec Windows 10 laptops being plugged. But I would have thought this would be the time to really make a splash for 10X, unless they're holding it back until the likes of Build, I suppose.
I think it would make sense for them to hold it back to a big event like that because they need to make sure they explain it to developers.
True, but I mean, they would need to have got the developer explanation in by now. I mean, you can't launch it at Build and then because developers need months to get into it. So obviously there'll be some that are that have access to the betas and the previews, but the vast majority of developers probably haven't got access to it apart from through these leaked builds. It'll be once there's some publicly available stuff going through the various insider channels that developers can start to play with stuff. Most developers. So I would have. If they're not going to announce it in a way whereby it can be previewed until Build, and that would probably mean we're not going to see the off-the-shelf version until I don't know much later on this year.
And when I say off-the-shelf, I mean we know you won't be able to buy 10X in the box. It'll come as part of a laptop or a device to be announced that you purchase. It'll be my guess. It'll be very limited availability. At Build, they'll talk about the developer story, which developers already really know anyway. It's not like it's a new development paradigm that's coming down. It's just what you can do now without the Win32 support. And it'll be very much specifically targeted and marketed not to be a general operating system, but to be on these lightweight devices that are effectively browser. I don't know how they'll there'll obviously be Chromebook comparisons, but they won't want to use the word. So what they call those devices will be interesting to see. What netbooks of 2021, perhaps.
I don't know. I'm thinking perhaps Windows for the cloud or that kind of thing, or they'll find some way of dropping the Windows name completely to avoid causing any confusion. Because the danger is if you say Windows 10, and especially if you say Windows 10X, and their branding up to now has been the Xbox One Series X, and that normally means it's the better device. And of course, looking at this, the Windows 10X is not the best operating system if you want to do many different things. It's going to have one set appliance type purpose. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see what they do with the branding as well. Heavens forbid, Microsoft getting branding all mixed up. Never. Is it 10 and is it 10X or 10 space X? Because it's 10 space S. So.
Oh dear.
Right, which operating system version was it with the capitalized? Oh, was it home server where we used to have this old discussion all the time? There was spacing. Sometimes they put the spaces in, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they capitalized it, sometimes they didn't. And I don't think there was ever a definitive answer.
Oh, it's a bane of my life. Brand names with capitalizations in them. I really do. Spend all my time looking things up and say, oh, it's been spelt 3 different ways. Oh, heck. Yes, it can be quite frustrating. Yes, Windows 7, that works well. Windows 10, perfect. That's okay. So so this thing is going to be interesting. As you say, it is limited. I don't know. I mean, I kind of, when I was playing it, I thought and obviously we're all doing a lot of homeschooling at the moment. I did think to myself, this would be a really good educational operating system. You could get a chunky old pen, like say the Microsoft Classroom room pen, a few things that it does, and that'd be great. But of course, you're going to have to put it on some relatively cheap hardware to make it usable, which could be where it goes. But I couldn't really again, it's preview, so I couldn't really get a feeling for the performance either compared to ordinary Windows, especially on lower end hardware.
Yeah, I ran it on Hyper-V with all my other Hyper-Vs, and actually it felt pretty good. It would say it felt quicker than the dual screen version, but that there isn't a huge amount in it, so it felt pretty light from that.
Okay, that's good to know.
There's not, if you've not tried this new version, it's essentially the same as the other one with the single screen, with just obviously later in time, but so it's a bit more polished. But the applications load up, you hit the start menu, and if I found interesting was that you can't actually see which the running application is as well. Like so if you're looking at Windows 10 now, you've got the highlight on the application that's currently the in focus the running application with the underline at the bottom. In 10X you don't see that, so you just got that task switcher, which is quite different. But there's some UI aspects I quite like the start menu or the launcher, and also the notification quick actions area. I think if they could bring certainly the notifications, if they could bring that across to Windows 10, that'd be quite nice. It's got like a bit of an improved look and feel to it.
Although, did you find the icons went a bit screwy when you moved your mouse over them, or was that just me?
Yeah, no, I didn't see that, but I did find that they were a little bit small to launch it.
Yeah,
it's a tiny little icon. It actually looks like a little tuning fork thing, doesn't it? I thought,
Exactly, but again, I'm going to cut that a lot of slack because this is it's all preview code. One thing I did like, I use a lot of Microsoft tools and their ecosystem. I would like a device that was a proper portal into my OneDrive and things, where it just all worked out the box instead of having to fiddle around with local storage and cloud storage. Just that I can see being being particularly appealing if you've bought into that ecosystem.
And apps on store work perfectly. I've fired those down, no problem. But it's the kind of thing all you I think really going to do with a device like that is to run the browser, isn't it? And maybe the odd app, but it's mainly browser stuff and things. Once I signed in as well with my Microsoft account, all my recent documents were there, including like the OneNote book that we use for the show notes and the links were already there. But when I clicked on it, it didn't take you to the app; it took you to the browser version. So it doesn't even try and install OneNote or anything like that. It's just the old browser based. So that's nice light feel to it. I think is quite good. So if it goes to the right market, and we just don't want to end up with the situation that we had with Windows RT. That's the one thing they've got to really avoid, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Surface RT.
nobody uses iTunes anymore, so maybe that's.
But I was thinking, Richard, you mentioned about it for school. Then I was thinking, yeah, it'd be all right for, for school and meetings, like you get Teams on it. But I think Zoom has a plugin, doesn't it? A Win32 plugin. So, is that one of those things that you're going to hit straight away? You get that and use it for, you want your kids to use it for school, and they say, right, install Zoom on it, and you can't straight away. That they've got to be careful. There's not something like that really.
Absolutely, and to be frank, they need to also get their own house in order as well. I mean, Microsoft is famous for releasing devices that don't work properly with its own software.
Yeah,
so
true,
they need to. I mean, ask any person with the Surface Pro X about Microsoft services that weren't out when the hardware appeared. So they need to make sure Teams must work. This must be a great device for Teams. Must be perfect for Teams.
Mm-hmm.
All the various apps must work out of the box. That's essential. And as you say, Zoom could be the new iTunes as far as this is concerned. Can it run Zoom? Can it run Google Classroom? All these things that can. And again, if the browser support's there, it'll probably work. But as you rightly say, we don't want to repeat the Surface RT where people buy these things expecting to get the Windows 10 experience because it's got Windows 10 all over it, and then finding that things don't work. They find their webcam doesn't work, or their mouse doesn't work, or this doesn't work, that doesn't work because it just doesn't work with it, or a certain app doesn't work, and that's what Microsoft really needs to be careful. They don't repeat what we've seen happen time and time again, where they do these things and then things don't work. I mean, I'm still a little bit burned by the Windows Phone experience, where they, things changed in between versions of Windows Mobile, where things that worked on 7 didn't work on. Obviously, Gary, you were there too. You can remember the pain of those goalposts suddenly lurching to one side. Well, I've been coding for this. Oh no, you've just changed the goalpost. So, yeah, this is why I'm very concerned that we've not had any public previews yet. So, I mean, I simply, unless it's really simple and it doesn't do anything, I'd be concerned about this going into devices that the public might accidentally buy before developers have had a chance to give it a good old bashing.
Yeah, and I guess that I think that'll play out this year, and we'll see what happens. I think what needs to happen next, though, is they do need to get it into developers' hands, even if it's just an official emulator build. I think that would be nice.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's these leaks are all well and good, but it's a leak, and you have to wonder: is it a deliberate leak, or is someone floating an idea, or has someone been very naughty? In which case, there must be all heck breaking loose with the veteran. But it's I think the level of interest in these leaks means they have to get something out relatively quickly, because you need to deal with the speculation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it gives us something to talk about over the summer, I think, when Windows 10X, and as soon as there's an official build, that I will definitely do a video. And
we can talk about it where we all go to face-to-face meeting at the computer museums.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah. Well, I'm very glad you're all like positivity for the show this week, Richard.
A little ray of sunshine is what I am.
Yeah. Well, you can do some cocktails, because you said before we started recording that's your lockdown skill. You've learned to make cocktails. Although
there have been no cocktails made tonight, I want to emphasize that now. Yes, indeed. Some people learn the language. Some people learn yoga, or to paint, or to play an instrument. Me, I have learned to make cocktails, and I think that's a good use of my lockdown time.
Yeah, that sounds a very good use.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'll bring the beer. You bring the cocktails.
Perfect.
Although I have nearly drunk all my Christmas ale. So now I guess I'll have to look for a spring ale next. I guess that's the next one. Maybe I need to go and find some real ale podcasts to listen to. Home brewing podcasts. That's probably a good idea.
Home.brew. And if that doesn't exist, it should.
Yeah, there'll be people registering it tonight. Now we have got some other good news this week. Richard, your Dell laptop's fixed.
Oh yeah, this is quite funny. Yeah, so unfortunately, my I've got a 2016 Dell XPS 13 laptop, which is was a brilliant machine. It had a very high resolution, I think almost a 4K touchscreen on this little sort of 13-inch chassis. I think I might even have done a review of it for TDL many years ago, and unfortunately, it didn't survive homeschooling. It didn't survive a drop on its corner from a desk. It kept working, but the case was cracked and the power socket was misaligned and things. So I thought, well, it is an i7 with 16 gigs. It seems a shame to really throw it away because you think to yourself, what's this going to cost to fix? It's clearly a bespoke case and things. So I, on the off chance, I gave Dell a call just to see what they would do, and bless them, within about 2 days, they'd sent a person out with all the spare parts, and he fixed it, and it cost it was about £100 or so. It wasn't very expensive compared to buying a new i7 of that size and and quality. And it's one of those remarkably odd, strange, rare things in the IT world where what happened was I sent them photographs of damage. The guy said the screen's okay. If the screen was broken, it would probably be scrapped, but the screen's okay, so therefore it's just the case. And this guy turned up with the case, fixed it, realized they'd forgotten the power connector, so came back 2 days later with the power connector as well, fixed that, put in a new battery as well, and that was it. And it's like having a brand new machine. The case is brand new, it's got a new battery, it's and it was it didn't cost a lot of money. Let's just say it cost a lot less than some of the educational PCs being punted at the at the current bet event. And I've got nothing bad to say about what happened there. It was very impressive. So I guess the lesson is don't be afraid to call vendors if you have problems, because they may be able to help you. And as I say, Dell did. I didn't even need to mention your name, Ian.
They didn't do very much with with that swollen battery one of mine. They just kind of went, "It's not under warranty." I said, "Yeah, no." Well, I mean, again, just because mine also wasn't under warranty. I would say it was a paid for call out and paid for repair. But again, the price was agreed up front, and they came and did it, and that was that. And did you have any plan or contract in place before? Was it just a retail one?
It was pure retail. I think I bought it. I think I might have bought it from John Lewis or somewhere years and years ago. And so there was no plan. I just called them on the off chance. They took the code and just the guy came out and fixed it. I think had the board been damaged or the screen been damaged, it would have been a different story. But because it was just a cracked case. But the other thing I was actually very impressive when he took it apart, because because I was quite curious to see what was inside it. I did take the whole thing apart. They are surprisingly modular. So things like the power connector was easy. It was a very easy fix. The existing one just unclipped, and the new one clipped on. And the same for the Wi-Fi. I could see where the SSD went. All these things were interchangeable. So I guess perhaps modern PCs may be less flexible in that way. But certainly this was very impressive. So the drivers and things, but ultimately they just fitted a new back plate to the case, a new sort of keyboard rest as well, because that was cracked, and that was everything. So a good story, a positive story. So I mean, I'm sure there'll be lots of people with horror stories from Dell, but they did well there.
At least your daughter hasn't got to be held off pocket money until she's 25 or something to pay for a new one.
In actual fact, what she's now using, the ungrateful wench, is she's got my old Asus, which is a lower resolution screen, not a touch screen. It's a massive beast of a laptop, and it's one of the very first i7s when they came out. That's a long time ago, but I fitted an SSD to it, and although the battery runs out in about 3 or 4 minutes, it works perfectly well. And annoyingly, she's decided it's better than the XPS because the screen's bigger. And I'm so disappointed in her. It's not a touch screen. It's a massive, great lump of a laptop. Oh no, but screen's bigger. Oh dear, oh dear.
the modularity and repairing of devices is kind of something went away, and it's kind of almost starting to come back, isn't it, with the upgradability of some devices?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it is good to see that coming back. I think obviously Microsoft are making a big play of that with their new Surface stuff devices, and Lenovo's always actually been pretty good around fixing stuff in the corporate world. So they've always had the ability there. But yes, I think people are becoming more aware. I mean, isn't there are there some rules in France coming out fairly soon where retailers have to say rules, EU rules to say how fixable things are?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we in the UK will be getting those.
Probably not.
But
it's not a full blown right to repair, but it at least does tell you, and I mean it's going to allow people to competitively shop by how easy things are to repair, which is an interesting one.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's very important, and especially when buying, an expensive device that you need to, that could be bashed around like a laptop, or dare I say it, a phone.
I mean that one of my son's Surface laptop, which they've had for 3 years now, it doesn't charge properly when you plug the edge connector in. You can get it to charge, especially if you use the dock, if you angle the connector in a certain way. So obviously the pins are bent or something inside, but it doesn't look like something I can probably fix. So where I can charge it for him, just the old magnetic charger or the standard magnetic charger, it doesn't have enough leverage to be able to use it. So, but I mean, it's annoying though. You've got a perfect device other than that, but I don't know whether that's going to be even fixable. So
it might be worthwhile contacting Microsoft, because you never know.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, he can buy his own devices now anyway. In fact, he's trying to get an Xbox One X with his Christmas money. So, obviously, I think there's another. I think they've apparently got some more coming on sale from this soon. Is it next week or something like that? They've got another batch of them coming through.
Oh, I'm fighting the urge.
Yeah, well, he's got the money. He's saved up his money, and but he can't get one. But he's waiting. Interesting, actually, as well for the Xbox. The economics of the Xbox are quite interesting. So, one of my sons bought the S, and because he said he didn't need the tray, and he's got his gaming PC, so he didn't need the power of the X. But James, who wants to get one now, he's got a lot of games on disc, whereas Jack used Game Pass. So he reckons he's got something like £200 worth of games on disc. So he's looking to get the X instead. So you have to pay the premium to get the tray, but whereas Jack, who's got the S, he's filled his storage up nearly. So if you want to buy the Microsoft Superfast storage, that's nearly £200, which is almost the price difference between the two, isn't it? It's
not cheap, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of, the S is a good entry point, but I wonder if people like us are going to regret slightly going for that cheaper one when as soon as you start to fill the hard drive up, you've either got to look at a slow USB 3 drive or that really expensive storage. So I think he's going to get a USB 3.
Or you start to sort of manage your collection. Think, okay, what do I play all the time? Not unlike, I'm sure Garry will mention charging electric cars. You've got to plan things.
And as we said before, people don't like planning.
Exactly. I think, no, I can't have that right now. Got to plan in advance.
Yeah, and I suppose perhaps the era where you just installed everything that you can because you've got all the got racks of discs on your shelf or whatever is gone, and perhaps with Game Pass the model is that you played something for a bit, get bored of it, uninstall it, get the next thing in, and so maybe the storage is more transient that way.
Which is kind of how I don't play a lot of games, but I do use Game Pass just because I quite fancy having a play of that and just see what that game's like and then moving on. So yeah. Although that said, I do have a terabyte SSD which just put games on. That's fine. So I've not had to uninstall anything yet.
Yeah, I'm still playing Forza Horizon. So I've done another month of my Game Pass for PC, just playing Horizon because, like I mentioned last week, it's really quick to go into it. To do 10 minutes with it and then shut it off again. So it's not something that you have to get your pedals and your wheel and your VR headset. And so, yeah, I'm quite enjoying playing with that bit.
I must admit, I can't do 10 minutes on Forza Horizon. It's like a time sponge, that game. I just start playing it. I'm utterly rubbish, but I just like to drive around and go, isn't it nice around here? Drive around. And I should watch for the Ice Dixon Avatar car to whiz past me.
Or if you get Garry's one, it'll be crashing in front of you.
I'll tell you funny story. A friend of mine's got a Nintendo Switch for Christmas, and I was playing, was it Nitro on there, the racing game, and I actually won some races. So there's obviously something about the controllers on that I can get on with.
That maybe it was those realistic controllers at CES. The problem. Yeah. In fact, was it a VR one? when we were doing that. I think it was, wasn't it?
It was
Early
a VR one.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
early.
VR. It wasn't. It didn't have the feedback and needed this.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I can hear the sound of a bad workman blaming his tools there.
Absolutely. Yeah, always get the right tools.
I'm afraid that no matter how expensive the tools I buy for Forza or FS 2020, I will always be terrible.
Yeah.
Actually, talking about a bad workman blaming his tools, I just want to flag something up for people who are putting TV brackets up, because I've had a number of people talk to me about TV brackets recently. I don't know why, it seems to be a common thing, where they're pulling off the walls in UK houses.
Yes.
And the primary reason is they've gone for plasterboard fixings, but what they've actually got is dot and dab. I know you know what a dot and dab wall is.
I had my house renovated last year. I know all about dot and dab.
So the difference back in the day, plasterboard used to be put on to beam sort of bits of wood in the wall, and you'd actually put your TV onto one of the beams. You'd got your stud finder to find these studs. You could find a stud, and then you'd put your TV onto it. But they don't. Most of the walls nowadays are just put up with bits of plaster to stick them on the blade, like glued onto the wall effectively, and they have a tiny gap in between the plasterboard and the breeze block or whatever block it happens to be. And a lot of these now are thermal block, which is even worse because it's very soft and crumbly. So what I'm going to highly recommend, because I've done a lot of research on this recently, is a fixing called Core Fix. And this gets around one of the biggest problems in plasterboard, in that the plasterboard takes all the load and then tends to pull off the wall with the load. So the Core Fix basically is a long fixing, but it also has a metal core, hence the name, which takes all the plaster load back from where the point of the television joining the wall to the breeze box and allows a bit of padding. And they actually have one specifically designed for these air blocks. And works really, really well. So if anybody's struggling to get something on the wall and sticking in place, they will do work, and they're not that expensive. So done a lot. This is coming up in Fascinating Tech in a couple of weeks' time. We've got a lot of looked at all the different types of fixings you can use for different types of walls. But dot and dab is the most challenging one, particularly with the air blocks. And I've now got a 55-inch television sitting on the end of a cantilever, which is about the worst thing you could possibly do to actually put in the wall. And it's holding fine. Oh, and it's also got a speaker underneath it as well, hanging off it. So
it's a good point now, because my house is relatively new, and I've put plenty of things up, and you can see them bring the whole, it just brings the plaster back down again. It's because it's that dot and dab. But what I did in 2006, when I got my TV wall mounted, I got a joiner to come in. He actually fit the batten to the wall, which is effectively doing what you're talking about. Yeah,
that's the other approach, because again, you're taking the load off the plasterboard.
Yeah,
is the key thing.
So this batten is mounted on the wall. With the sort of sat in the plasterboard, and then the TV bracket is on the batten, so it's not on the plasterboard, because these thin plasterboards, I mean, I could probably poke my finger through if I pressed hard enough. In modern houses, they don't make them like they used to on big, on the old style ones.
It's slightly less of an issue now because we don't have massive plasmas, but which were super heavy. But even so, it's still, especially if you've got a cantilever, which you have to remember all about levers. If you know Archimedes and everything else. Once you put a TV on the end of a long lever, you're putting a lot more pressure on the wall than you would be just putting it straight on the wall.
Yeah,
I can assure you that having spent the last 6 months renovating my 100-year-old house, they also didn't make them like they used to in the old days either.
I don't think they've ever made them like they used to.
All these things, they were so good back then. No, they weren't. No, I can tell you from bitter experience, they definitely weren't. Apart from my my patio, which proved to be made of concrete in the 1930s, so hard that that it's actually still under the new patio, because the builder spent about a week hammering at it with power tools, and it would not budge. This concrete patio, so it's just we've had to build over it, and so that bit was built as they used to. The rest of the house, less so.
Yeah, because the benefits of these thin plasterboards is they don't block your Wi-Fi signal, so you don't need as many repeaters.
This is true. Although I mean, I've obviously got Ethernet throughout the house, which has made life. It's actually transformed the experience of using Wi-Fi, because instead of that, I've just got repeaters hooked up via the Cat the Cat 5, Cat 6 in the house, and it just works so much more reliably than when I try to use a mesh or Nest type solution.
Yeah, I think actually that's probably a thing that people working from home and schooling from home, to look at. It since I'm using the power line, Ethernet over power line, and then I've got the repeaters on that. Those D-Link ones, and they work brilliantly. So I've got one in here, so I've got the power over Ethernet into here, which has got Wi-Fi in it, but I've got it directly into a switch. So I've got my laptops and everything plugged into the switch. And in the lads' rooms, they've got one in their own room with their own switch and their own kit on there. And it solves so many problems. I used to have them coming out, the Wi-Fi is not working, and it really does solve that now. So the only devices use it. So my devices use the Wi-Fi in here, or I've got downstairs if I'm downstairs. But the lads use their own ones in their own rooms, and my PC's on the wired. It make the power over Ethernet actually from when I did it last year compared to when I tried it about 5 or 6 years ago is really improved, and it's really stable as well, and it doesn't drop off. And I get consistently good bandwidth. I'm not moving massive amount of files between devices like using a home server streaming Blu-rays or anything like that. But it's important that as long as I get my 50 meg or whatever I can get from a Skype broadband, that's enough for me, and that's worked. So while I've been working from home, and it's no problem at all. We've all been streaming Netflix, and I can still work. So yeah, I definitely recommend that if you're struggling with Wi-Fi, if you do Cat 5 or Cat 6, but if you can't do that, then have a look at those power Ethernet ones, because they are a cheap, easy solution. Mesh, I think meshes are good, but they can get more complicated than perhaps they need to be.
Yeah, actually, especially when you're trying to merge two lots of meshes from two households, which I've been trying to do recently. But so we put the Linksys ones onto a different network, which echoes onto a different network. That was a bit of fun, but got there in the end. You have to do a complete reset. It's not easy.
I imagine that's a lot of consideration to take into account for you, Gary. That you're moving somewhere, moving into somewhere. You've got you and your technology to come.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot. It's an interesting one. Actually, the biggest challenge I think is merging two Amazon households. That's a real
yeah.
Which usually put the devices on. Talking about which, I have a reader's question. I haven't had one of these for ages. So this is from Alec. He says, "Hello, Gary and gang," which I think is a bit missing out a few people, but
that's a good show name.
Yeah, good show name. So he says, I'm having problems with one of my Alexa routines. I wonder if the gang can help me with it. I've got a routine where I play a playlist, and then what I want to do is after a minute or so, I want the lights to dim, and then another minute lights to dim further. I've tried this, but they never seem to dim. And I've looked into this, and I think what the problem is he's actually playing a playlist as a routine, and the way the routines work is they are sequential. So right. It will if he actually plays the playlist and then does the wait 20 seconds or whatever he wants to do, it's going to wait the 20 seconds after the playlist is finished. Yeah. So it probably is actually working. It's not working until the end of the playlist. And I don't actually know. I can't think of a way around that. I don't know if anybody else can think of a way around that.
I have the Philips Hue fading the lights on over half an hour, but I am thinking about that. That's actually from the Hue app itself, not triggered through an Alexa. Because what I suppose you want to do is hand it off, don't you? So you want the fade to start, hand that off, and then carry on with the playlist. But like you said, they work like an old Spectrum, ZX Spectrum basic program where you've not, and it's doing one thing at a time. So I'm not sure that that's even possible.
I the only other thing I thought was I wonder if you could do some sort of like, I mean, obviously this would have to be a paid IFTTT, but wonder if you could use one of the IFTTT approaches, maybe trigger an IFTTT event at the start before you started your playlist, which then did the time of doing IFTTT. Maybe I'm not sure. Can you do timers with IFTTT?
You can probably trigger a Hue, or I don't know what kind of lights they are, but you can probably trigger. I know if it was a Philips Hue, you can trigger a light to come on in a scene to come on with X amount of time. So Yeah, I would imagine you might even be able to do it directly with the Hue. I'll have a play. You might be able to do it directly from the Alexa app through Philips Hue, because the Philips Hue might have a scene that takes X amount of time to come on. So you might be able to do it that way.
Yeah, that's one option. I don't know. He doesn't say what lights he's got. So Alec, if you can come back to us and let us know what type of lights you've got, that might help us work out a possibility. And I did wonder if the IFTTT, you could actually push it back to Alexa to turn the lights on, because you could probably do a command in there.
Yeah. This is where Stringify was great. You could do all that through Stringify, but of course that went a while ago.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you could do it if you had some sort of smart home hub. You could push a command out to the hub and get that to do all the timing and everything like that. But he wants to do it all through the Alexa routines, which makes a lot of sense. People have got that now, and it's a very simple way of doing smart home stuff.
Yeah, I know the through the Hue you can have your routines and your scenes, they call them, and you can have the transition to scenes. And you might even be able to set the delay and transition to scenes and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's one of those. That's always one of those things where you think doing it through something like the Google Assistant or Amazon Alexa or the Apple's version, you've got that. It's very easy to create these routines, but when you go a little bit more advanced, that's where you tend to get stuck, isn't it? And you where do you go from there? And that's where having it roll in your own system and having your own control gives you the extra options.
Indeed, it does.
Well, good questions, and maybe someone else will have the answer that they can.
Somebody comes up with an idea for that. I mean, it's an interesting challenge. And it's sort of thing you think would be quite a common request with sort of playlists, because if you think about mood music, you want that sort of dimming over time, or I mean, there's no sunset or sunrise approach in routines available, and you can do things after sunset and that, but you can't sort of time them to flow very easily. I mean, maybe you could do some sort of timed, I don't know. Can you enable another routine from a routine? I can't remember what you can do. I'll have to look into that way, because if you could enable another routine from a routine, you could do it on a timer basis and get it to trigger maybe.
Yeah, I do like those routines that fade as well. I do like those. So, like I said, I've got mine, so they just come on very gradually, and you don't see them coming on, and then you don't see them going off and everything. But yeah, to time it with your music, mood music, and get your Barry White on there, very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, was there anything else? Any other topics you had for this week's show?
Nothing from me.
Silence.
Exactly.
Yeah,
the gang's gone quiet. I'm still convinced that Garry and the gang sounds like some 70s prog rock band.
It does rather, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe. Or some discredited.
I'm not going there at all, Ian. You went there all by yourself. I'm staying well away from that one.
Yeah, perhaps I won't include that in the. Yes, I will leave it in. Yeah,
I very nearly had a band at college called Gaz and the Gremlins, which.
I've got fond memories of Gremlin Graphics, the software house.
Oh yes, yeah. Those guys were great.
What did they do? That rings a bell. Though. What was? I can't think of a Gremlin.
I'm trying to think of a game now. I'm saying I've got fond memories, and now I'm thinking, what did they actually do? What did they do?
Was it Amiga era or was it Spectrum era?
I think it was. I think it was Spectrum, Amiga, Amstrad, all of them, wasn't it? Didn't they do? Oh, I know what it was. Hold on. Thing on a Spring. That's the one, because that's got one of the greatest tunes of all time. Thing on a Spring.
You have to remember that, because that was Stuart and Kevin Milburn, wasn't it? I remember working with them back in the day, or talking to them back in the day. They actually did, because that actually became Infogrames, didn't it? They went. I think it was Gremlin Graphics.
They did, yeah, they did, yeah.
Became Infogrames.
Yeah. So, but I think Infogrames vanished in the early 2000s. But yeah. I'm just thinking, Wanted Monty Mole for the Specky was on those too. But I was remembering. I think it must have been in some department store, and they had a trailer for Thing in a Spring playing, and it was one of the greatest things I'd ever seen as a small person. I thought I need to buy that game and that computer right now. And of course, sadly, it took a lot of paper rounds.
Yeah.
I just got on the Wikipedia. There's all sorts of games they did. Jack the Nipper, Thing on the Spring, Monty Series, Supercars, Premier Manager, Nigel Mansell IndyCar. A load of games.
Yeah.
It was an interesting era that was for game development. Those early days.
I'm trying to think about it. Did they actually become Infogrames, or were they acquired Infogrames? I think they were acquired by Infogrames.
They acquired
I think they got bought by Infogrames at the end of the 90s, and then it got renamed to to Infogram Studio or something like that.
They were bought by Infogrames for £24 million in 1999.
That was a lot of money in 1999.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when they bought DMA Design.
Yeah.
Did they buy DMA Design?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Because they
got Grand Theft Auto. Which back then wasn't seen as a big market. The one that was big on that deal was Lemmings.
I was going to say DMA was Lemmings, wasn't it? I think. Go back.
Love Lemmings. Played many of our on Lemmings on the Amiga.
Yeah, Lemmings was great.
Yeah, I play Lemmings a lot. Well, there you go. I've now set us off into a wonderful bit of nostalgia there. Yeah, Lemmings was great. I used to play it on the Amiga, actually. It was it.
I did.
It was superb. That was crikey. Yeah. So, Gremlin graphics. Well, I hope Ian and Kevin are doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. I think I'm going to go and find an Amiga emulator now and see if I can get.
What you need is a Raspberry Pi 400.
Oh yeah, I've got. Well, I've got my Pi down here.
There we go. Just stick it in, because I've got an SD card for each emulator now. So it's just whichever nostalgia mood I'm in, just pop up in the card and away it goes. It's a good little machine for that.
Yeah, I think that's my next thing. I'll go and play Lemmings.
Have you bought yourself a pinball machine yet? Apparently, that's the big thing of this year.
Is it?
People buying pinball machines for home.
The proper mechanical ones.
My brother used to have one a few years back, and it was a wonderful thing, but caused no end of problems. I think it was an Addams Family pinball machine, and it was great for about a year, and then it broke, and getting it fixed proved to be very difficult and expensive.
Yeah, it sounds like it's one of those things. I think perhaps if you've got a really large area to put it in, sounds a good idea. Somebody once bought my son a air hockey table, a little battery power one, which seemed a great idea. But where do you put an air hockey table in? I mean, I've got a 4-bedroom house, but I haven't got the space to put a big air hockey table. So it's currently in the garage with a lot of plant pots on it at the moment.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got my shed which we built during lockdown, which I have to say I intend to put an exercise bike in the shed. So there's I did make the point that it is big enough for a pub-sized pool table, but that idea has been nixed, sadly.
That's the way it goes.
my exercise bike is in the garage, which I did get a new one for Christmas. Actually, I don't want to mention that on the show, but yeah, I did get a new bike.
What'd you get?
Oh, I can't remember the brand. I didn't get one of the ones like that you link to a subscription service or whatever. I just got one of a couple £100 one.
That's probably for the best, because I do wonder. Obviously we're going to mention Peloton there, but I do wonder if you see these exercise bikes are hooked up to all these services and stuff. I wonder if it would be better to just get an ordinary dumb one and then use something like Apple Fitness or something with it, because then at least you don't have to, you're not committed to a service that, as we know from smart homes, could disappear the next day.
I'll tell you exactly. I got one with. I had a really old one already. I replaced it, so it's got an LCD screen on it that has all the the distance and calories. But I use the Samsung Watch with the exercise bike mode, and I use a HoloLens to watch Netflix while I'm on it.
That reminds me. It took you back to graphics, but Gremlin graphics. So that takes me back then. Back in the early days, one of my first hacks I ever did was to take apart an Atari joystick and attach it to my cycle wheel so I could ride along in the Olympics doing the cycling.
Yeah.
So it's just clicking the button effectively.
That's a good idea. As opposed to the rest of us who would cheat outrageously in Daley Thompson's Decathlon on the Spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I brought my keyboard on my Spectrum doing that. Yeah, but I think you're right. I mean, I know some friends who've got like the Peloton type things, but it's not for me. I'm quite happy just doing half an hour by myself watching Netflix. No one wants to see me, or I don't want to see anybody else either. So it works fine for me, and I've got all the data on my watch then with the calories burnt and everything.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's I do get concerned about how some of these very expensive bits of hardware do depend on a service which, as we know, could disappear. Not that I'm suggesting that Peloton would disappear in the future, or it's hard connected. It's just the thing when you buy any device now. I think you need to have a good hard look and see what it depends on. I mean, for example, I bought a robot vacuum cleaner last week, which is rubbish. But I did. I can see it depends on an Amazon service, and I fully expect that at some point it's going to be turned off. In 5-6 years time, as these things probably as the manufacturer moves on, and then. So I didn't spend too much money on it. I thought I'd just go for the cheap version because it's going to probably be recycled fairly soon, which kind of feels wrong. But I don't know. I don't want to spend thousands and then it still be turned off in a matter of years. I think you're absolutely right.
But not like the Equifax we tested in Fascinating Tech, which you can actually use as a security sentry.
Oh, there we go.
You just use the camera because it's got a front-facing camera which it uses for object detection, but it's actually really wide angle, so you can drive it around. You can literally drive it around the building remotely and see what's around. It's quite effective.
Magnificent.
Excellent. Right. Well, Garry, where can we find you and your gang?
You can find with all the gangs on there. I think you can find me on Twitter at Garry WMA, 2 R's in Garry, or Fascinating Tech, and the gift guys out there for people who've got a bit of money for Christmas and want to find something a bit weird and wonderful, because we've certainly got that. And before I go, congratulations, Ian, on getting MVP again.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say that.
Yes, well done, Ian. Congratulations. Yes, congratulations on that. Good
and
job.
To you, Garry.
Oh well, I haven't had it as long as you've had it. Is it 18 years now?
I guess it will be, something like that,
I don't have an
MVP as old as your kids.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't have an MVP, so I obviously can't comment.
But the news and interest bar was my idea.
You're to blame. Excellent, good. That's worth knowing for future.
And Richard, where can we find you?
You can find me mostly on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
Excellent. Well, I'm at iStixon on Twitter. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Please email in with your questions for Garry and answers if you've got any.
And
we'll be back next week. So see you then.
Cheerio.